Hey everybody, what's going on? It's John Glutch, your best friend and realtor over at the Glutch Group. Hey, it's that time again. We started doing a monthly bubble watch a couple months ago. We're actually gonna do bi-monthly, I think. And what we're doing is just tracking people always asking is there a bubble? It's been so good for so long. This has got to stop. Should we be worried? And so we just want to answer that question as best we can. And what we can for sure do is point to what were the causes, what were the problems that caused to the collapse we saw, about 10 years ago. And are we seeing those issues again? Is that happening right now? And so about every other month, I'm going to run through those metrics, some of the things that we look at very closely to see and to keep an eye on what the market is doing. So first thing we always take a look at is the median sales price as compared to the median income. So in other words, like a normal person, like the average kind of median income, can they afford the median house payment? And what we can do is look at that every couple of months and just see how that lines up, because that got really out of whack. It was very, nearly impossible for people to afford the average house in Phoenix during the bubble, and so we want to make sure that's not happening again. And so right now we see a really good ratio. Right now the median sale price is about $260,000. That's what the kind of right in the middle house price is in Phoenix, and that will cost you about $1,250 a month. So that's after like a 20% down payment. It'll be plus or minus some depending on your down payment, but about $1,250 a month gets you into that house. And then what is the average person makes? If you kind of figure, okay, the average person can spend about 25% of their monthly income on a house. That's kind of what the experts use as a figure. If we use that as a figure, then the average person making that $58,000 a year can afford about a $250,000 house, right? So just under the $260,000 that our average is. So that's really good. That's a very healthy sign. Whereas someplace like San Francisco, Seattle, places that are much more expensive, New York, very, very few people can afford to buy a house. In Arizona, one of the reasons our population increases so quickly and so consistently is that it's a very affordable place to buy a home. So about 96, 97% of the average size house is what the average person can buy. That's a very, very good sign. And then rent to buy. So the next thing I look is it cheaper to rent or is it cheaper to buy? In a great situation, you want it to be cheaper to buy. You want people to be incentivized to go out and buy houses, and that continues to put upward pressure on pricing and help those of us who already own homes enjoy some appreciation. And so we want to see that monthly price, like what it costs to buy a house. I just said the average is about $1,250 a month for the average house, versus what does it look like to rent the average house. And our rental market has been absolutely on fire. In fact, there's a really interesting stat I want to go over in just a second, but the current monthly rent payment is $1,495 a month. That's the average lease in Phoenix for the average house. So right now, $1,250 to buy a house and $1,495 to rent that same house. So that's a really good sign for the real estate market. It means that people who are buying houses can afford those houses, and it's actually a little cheaper after you put the down payment down to buy than it is to rent. That's a really good sign. What's really interesting too is that rent number went up since the last time I did the Bubble Watch email. It went up about 5%. It went from $1,425 a month to $1,495 a month. Now some of that is seasonal. We see rental market heat up in the summer for sure. But it reminded me that one really great thing about owning a house is your payment stays the same. It's not going to change. Whereas when you rent a house, that's subject to market fluctuations. Are people going to raise the rent on you? Is the landlord going to kick you out so they can put in more higher paying tenants? That's definitely a possibility. Whereas once you buy a house, that's not the case. So nice to lock in a payment that you can count on for 15 or 30 years, depending on your mortgage. The last thing we look at is the defaults. So how many people aren't making their payments? They're getting foreclosed, they're behind on their rent, that kind of thing. Right now, our defaults are at 3.4%, which is crazy low. That's historically low, meaning people who are buying houses can actually afford these houses. If you compare that to the US, we're a few percent under what the average US number is, and we got to over 16% when it was really bad. So we're looking really good as far as defaults. People are making their payments. There's not this huge influx of foreclosures that we would be worried about if we saw a bubble starting to inflate. And also, just for the sake of curiosity, we are 8th lowest in the nation for defaults, meaning almost every other state in the country is worse off than us, although they're in good shape too. 5% as a nation for defaults is very, very good. So we're seeing the effects of a very robust economy. Unemployment is record lows right now. The big tax cuts have really fueled spending. Consumers are spending lots of money right now, and they feel very confident in the economy. The stock market's doing well. Kind of everything is working. Interest rates are still very low. So it's really we're just experiencing the effects of a great economy. We're, I think, prone to looking over our shoulder and worrying about what we've experienced in the past. It's like, okay, the sky must be falling. It's been too good for too long. And it just doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like we're experiencing the benefits of a great economy. That doesn't mean, of course, that can't turn around. You know, we see that the economy is very cyclical, goes up and down and changes often. So now would be a smart time to probably be saving some of that extra money you're making, putting some away for a rainy day when that inevitably happens. But as far as the housing market is concerned, I don't see any reason to be worried. I think we can continue to enjoy the great appreciation we're having. The last 12 months has been about 8%, which is like very high and not sustainable. It won't stay that high. It'll drop to more historic normals like 4%, 3%. But let's enjoy it while we can. And if you've been waiting to buy a house, it will almost surely be more expensive next year than it is right now. All of the metrics show that the market's very hot. So the last bonus indicator you're going to get is the Cromford Index. That's an index put out by a guy named Mike Orr, who's just brilliant at this stuff, and he boils down how hot is the market into one specific number. That number right now, I'll put the chart up here on the screen. It's going to be different across every city, but you can kind of look and see where your city is. Right now, like the hottest, if it's the higher the number, the hotter the market is for sellers. So right now, like the hottest market is Avondale, which has a Cromford Index of 206, which is crazy. That means houses are flying off the shelves, they list them, and then the next minute they're sold. The lowest one we see on the top 17 chart here is Tempe, which is at 125, which is still very good. That's a seller's market. Houses are selling quickly in Tempe for sure, and everything in between. So you can kind of look and find your city in there and see how hot your market is. If you're looking to sell, now's a good time to do it. I mean, they're flying off the shelves at the moment. So right now, the forecast is really good and looking to stay good, and we'll keep you updated. We'll keep doing this about every couple months and let you know what we see in the forecast for the future. So this has been your Bubble Watch. Hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions. Love to hear your comments, questions, or thoughts below. Thanks.